Hey guys, I'm Coach Jay, and today I'm talking with Chelsea McQuarrie, and we're going to talk about some things that typically you're not going to hear from mental performance coaches, but I think it's an industry that parallels a lot about what we do. And at the end of the day, we're about picking winners. We're about winning habits. We're dealing with things that help people win. And there's an entire industry out there that's been created through DraftKings and all these betting agencies. And a lot of times when I look at the numbers and the things that they're involved with, I find it fascinating how they pick winners but the one of the biggest secrets about the industry is that right now they're making most of their money off of people that are closer to Chelsea's age than mine. So all these fraternity boys at all these colleges, they are funding DraftKings, and they're not. And a lot of it is that they're betting on emotion. They're betting on, well, I like SEC better than ACC. They're betting on all these non-factors that really don't have anything to do with the outcome of the game. And so what happens with a lot of guys like myself is if I get in there and I start winning, they're gonna block me. And that's basically they block the guys who can run the analytics on it. And I mean, I've watched a lot of sports. The only sport I'd probably ever bet on would be football. And but I choose not to. I don't want to get caught up in all that. I'm more about the players than betting on games. But so Chelsea, I mean, what are you seeing from your college experience? Like, do guys talk about this stuff? Do you hear about guys winning? Are you hearing about this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I've been kind of integrated in sports my whole life, and I will say, like, I'm a little bit guilty. Like, I have a Flip account and, like, I watch sports. So sometimes I'll throw in, a couple, like, game points, not even my own money, but just like, just for the fun of it. But I see a lot of my friends and, like, just guys that I know get wrapped up in the whole, like, well, I have to bet on this player and this team. And it just gets almost like addicting, I think. And they like the
Yeah,
thrill of it. And what's crazy is, like, they're not necessarily like the most massive sports fans, or like they've played sports their whole life. It's just like they're kind of looking for something to do. And so
yeah,
instead of making these educated decisions on, like, oh, like, this offense is playing this defense, so, like, the matchup, I think this is going to outweigh this. And, like, instead of kind of really dissecting the parts of the game, they're just kind of being like, I grew up in Ohio, I'm going to, put money on Ohio State. Or, like,
right.
I love Josh Allen, so I think the Bills are going to win this week. And it's like,
Yeah,
you can't exactly make bets off of that, because that, emotional decisions don't withstand logical decisions. And so,
right,
um,
right.
I think
Eh,
that they kind of get caught up in that. And they
yeah,
definitely, I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of money for
yeah.
sure.
And DraftKings and those organizations, they capitalize on that. They know that it's an emotional audience. They know that they're using the same psychology that they're using Las Vegas, where repeatable things. Uh, they're using a lot of the same things to get you addicted, and I think that's a good word for it. My angle on it is I'm fascinated to figure out how what exactly they're betting on. I was talking to one of my power four quarterbacks last night, and I was like, you know what the number one thing is that the top betters are looking at? And he was sitting there looking, he was thinking about it, and he's like, no, I'm not sure. And I was like, they want to know about the quarterback. They want to
Yeah.
know where his head's at. They want to know if he's injured. They want to know if he went out the night before. They want to know everything they can about the quarterback. And when I told him that, he goes, "Oh, it makes total sense." But I don't think the majority of people are thinking that way. But that quarterback controls that outcome of the game. And
Absolutely.
you know that your team has a good quarterback, you're feeling pretty good about your program. When your quarterback is struggling, you're like, "Oh man, it's hard to win."
Yeah.
but the guys at the top of the chain, they're looking at injuries of starting players, and they're looking at the quarterback. I mean, when we're talking about football, and it makes sense. Um, but there's a lot of things that, I mean, I think like a bookie. That's the way my mind thinks. I look at, hey, this game's an away game. You're playing in front of a hostile crowd. I'm always looking at those things. And when I'm talking to my clients, I'm always trying to prepare them for, they're going to hate you. They're going to heckle you. They're going to do all these things, but you got to feed off of that. But I am fascinated by how these guys are breaking this stuff down. And in today's world, with all the analytics that is printed, that's published, you can pretty much predict a pretty good idea what kind of scores are going to come out there, how this team matches up with that team. And I mean, I'm constantly amazed at how close they predict the scores and
Yeah.
how accurate they are,
Yeah.
especially for Super Bowls and things like that.
Mhm.
And
And I
and
think it's just, like, there's a lot to dissect out of it because it's not only like, "Oh, like, are they injured or not this week?" But it's also like, you can find now on all these social medias, like, "Oh, this person they just had a baby, and so he's probably gonna be a little more tired." And, like, only, like, diehard fans know that, but if
yeah,
personally, if I'm putting my money down, like, I'm gonna know what I'm putting it down on. And
yeah,
so, there's just a lot more that goes into it, like, "Oh, did this person just get like, did he just propose to his now fiance, and now they're trying to plan a wedding, and he's gonna be a little bit emotionally unattached to the game for a second," or,
right,
you know,
yeah.
there's just, like, a lot of factors that go into it. It's not just, like, is he healthy, is he not? And I think that's where our industry kinda ties into it a lot because with the way, like, you and I think is, like, there's a lot of different factors and parts to playing a sport. It's not just like I'm on the field and like if I eat a good meal before, that's it. Like there's, just like a ton of parts to it. And we've seen that through like working with athletes and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't get that. And that's why, these not even 20-year-old college students are losing all their money they made during the summer on making these uneducated bets during their internship because you know, they don't really understand fully the depth of, like, what's going on with all
Yeah.
of it.
And a lot of times what you hear from the head coach is a revised version of what really happened. Like there are things going on where they can't blame somebody specifically. Our quarterback was trash today. Like some of the things you just can't hear that, but there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes where I've heard about a lot of stuff, and it never makes it to the media. There's never really that explanation. But I mean, I see what's put in the media, especially with X and things like that, and one line can be repeated 1,000 times and it's not even true,
Yeah.
and tarnish a person's reputation. And and it's based on that people don't want to like that guy for because they see the way he carries himself or whatever. And we see coaches like that that get tarnished like that all the time. And I think that I know that a lot of this stuff is purely for entertainment purposes on what's written. And at the end of the day, I just want to know how a team won, and I want to know why they
Right.
lost. And at the end of the day, it's pretty logical. There's always a reason
Mhm.
that you can figure it out if you know enough about both parties. This team was just a better team. They were stronger mentally, physically. This team over here, they when they came out the bus, they had their heads down. So you see it all, and I'm constantly reading body language. Wasn't that impressed with the USA loss last night to Belgium. I didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency. A lot of the things that I'm looking for with my athletes, I'm
No,
watching the clock, and I'm just trying to figure out how they think they're going to close the gap at their current pace. And, so,
it was a hard
but
watch for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by the way that these guys break down the analytics. And I'm also fascinated by the fact that the fans are typically just very emotional. They're about the win or the loss, and they're really caught up in the score. But I think from our vantage point, we really just want to know why it went down the way it did, and what are the components that change the outcome of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, I mean, just being an athlete at Clemson, I saw a lot of like what went down inside, and it was very different than what was perceived, through the
Yeah,
media, things like that. And it was eye-opening to see how things can be swayed and how, you know, one thing that actually happens can kind of be twisted and turned 5 different ways
yeah,
into something else. And like it can really, depict something that isn't happening, or maybe that I know what a lot of people, I mean, not this didn't happen at Clemson that I know, but like just in general, a lot of coaches try to like hide things that have happened just because they, don't want bad publicity for the school and the team. And,
right.
it can ruin things like that. So that also sways a lot. So you never necessarily know like the full entire truth, which is
Yeah,
hard.
and the coach is not going to be transparent, and it's really not his job to say this is what we did wrong and this is what we did right. They're basically trying to protect the brand. They're trying to keep their players engaged enough so that they can win the next week. So as much as we think that they're trying to relay what just happened, they're really not. And if they really were, they would pull out a stat sheet and they would just go through it and they would go, "Hey, we're 1 for 9 on third downs. Like it's impossible to win with those kind of stats." They would point that kind of stuff out, which is if I'm watching a big game, I'm looking at the stats the whole game, and I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out, okay, if we're averaging 10 yards per pass and we're only getting 2 yards per run, we got to pass a lot more. Well,
Yeah.
we got to have 50-50 pass run. No, you don't. You go with what gives you the most yardage. Like
Yeah.
you hear the dumbest stuff out there
Right.
from fans and coaches.
And then maybe once the defense makes a switch, then you can run on them. But like you
Right,
don't
right, right.
run,
Exactly.
just
Yeah,
keep the stats in pass and run evenness. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
So I do think nowadays, with a lot of guys that can break down film and things like that, they're exposing a lot of programs. I mean, I've seen they can really expose offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, as well as the quarterback. Like, what's he thinking? This play is designed for this. He's he didn't execute it right. So I do think that that's helping us have a more educated fan base, which I think is good for everybody.
yeah. No, I definitely agree.
So anyway, good conversation. We'll talk more about some of this kind of stuff as we get into football season, and it's all good. People can check us out if they need help with mental performance help for their athlete at sportsintervention.com. I can be found on Psychology Today at listed as Coach Jay and Ponte Vedra, and you can find we have a Instagram site. What's the address of it?
It's coaching mental performance.
Coaching mental performance. Yep. So you can go there or find me on X at College Scout FB. So all that being said, have a great day.
Bye.
See ya.